Hello, my name is Keana W. Mitchell, and I am a singer, songwriter, podcaster, and relationship coach. I am also a Christian who, for years, grew up in a religion that taught me to fear God instead of have a relationship with God. It wasn't until I lost my religion and developed a relationship with God that I was able to understand how much God really loved me. Each one of us have a story to tell about how we found God. Each one of us have taken a different path and a different journey to find God. So join me as we go on a journey through interviews and music to discover how people find God. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Finding God podcast. I am your host, Keana W. Mitchell. This week on the podcast, I'm super excited. We have our first guest from Israel over in the Middle East. Her name is Imbar, and she's from Israel, and she also said that she's blind and that she's been blind from the time she was a child. However, she has an amazing story to tell about how she was able to find God in spite of the fact that her family was not religious. So without further ado, here is the interview that I did with Imbar as she talks about her journey to finding God. Hello, Imbar. How are you doing?
Hello, I'm great. How are you, Keana?
I am doing awesome. Thank you so much for being a guest on the Finding God podcast. I am super excited to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me.
You are welcome. Now, we're going to start our interview by me asking you the question I ask every single guest. And that question is, what was your childhood like?
My childhood. I heard the question correctly, yeah?
Yes, you did.
Childhood.
Yes.
Good. I grew up as a woman, a girl who was blind, a child who was blind in a sighted society. I grew up in a small town in Israel. I was born and raised in Israel. I live in Israel. I grew up in a family of divorced parents. I was raised by my mom, and I have an older sister. And I grew up in a regular sort of framework school, and friends and activities and hobbies and a dog, and trips to the countryside with my father and with my mother. And I love nature, I love the sea, I love the connection to the planet, and I didn't miss any opportunity to be in nature. And awesome. So studies and homework and growing up as a child, just the blindness as an added sort of component or element.
Right.
Yeah, that's about it.
Okay, so it seemed like your life was pretty good, even though you were blind. It's like you had fun, you did things, you experienced a lot of things that all children experience.
Exactly. There were challenges, but there were fun times, like every other childhood, I think.
Yes. So when you were younger, was God a part of your life or your routine? Did you guys go to church do you remember that when you were like really young?
No, we never went to, hardly ever went to synagogue. My mother just showed us the tradition. She took us to synagogue very, very few times on holidays. But from a very young age, I felt connected to God. Very, very young age. I think 5 years old or 6 years old. I felt there was something there. There was a divine force in my life, a goodness, a benevolence that was always with me. I felt somebody was always with me. And I'll tell you, I went to a religious school at the first year of studies because this was the only school in my town in Beersheba. Maybe you heard about it.
Yes.
It's in the Bible. So the only school in Beersheba which was equipped with all the Braille writers and the books and everything to learn Braille was at a religious school.
Right.
So yeah, it wasn't my background, and we have nothing against it. As I said, my mother showed us the tradition so we could choose if we wanted to become religious or not. Obviously, none of us did. I mean, My sister and I didn't, and my parents were not religious. And but we had a connection to God. Even my mother has a connection to God. And the only thing the good thing that came out of this religious school, well, I learned Braille. That was great.
Yes.
I learned to read and write in Braille. It was very important for me, but that was the only thing I took from the scholastic side of the school. But from the divine side, I took the songs. The songs were amazing. It was light our hearts with your words, light our eyes with your words, put love in our hearts, fill our hearts with love for you and with our love for, with your love for us and our love for you. And God is everywhere. And I went with this. I stayed with these songs. They kept on in my heart. And I knew that God was with me all the time and he was everywhere. And it was like God is your friend. All the songs was God is a friend of our soul. We have a song in Hebrew that's called "Friend of My Soul," and it talks about God, and He's a friend of my soul ever since. Friend of my heart and my soul.
That is awesome.
Yeah, and when I read a book when I was 9, I think, Jane Eyre. I don't know if you read it.
No, I don't think I have.
It's a great book, and one of the characters there says, God is my friend, and it's stuck with me. And I'm like, wow, God is my father, but he can be my friend too. Mm-hmm. So it's lovely. I mean, that's the connection of benevolence and love and togetherness, closeness. He holds my hand, and he's held my hand since I remember the connection with God, since I was very, very young.
That is
and
amazing.
He supports me, and he gives his love and shows it in so many ways. It's amazing. I've had some stories of divine intervention, if you want to hear it later, but really, ask your questions, because I can talk and talk and talk about it.
Okay, no, I love where you're going, because I found it interesting. So you went to a religious school, and I love the fact that you say you didn't really pick up on all the religious stuff, but the thing that really stuck with you were like the songs and how God is your friend and how he's with you. So all the other rules and regulations, you're like, okay, that didn't stick with you, but the fact that you knew that God was your father and he could be your friend, I find that to be absolutely amazing, that that's what you got when you were such a young child.
Yes, and there was a like a Bible study lesson at school, and it says, I was also something like 8 or 9 years old. I was very young, and it said something like God is vengeful and wrathful and jealous, and I'm like, no, God is good, God is kind, God is full of mercy and grace and compassion. How can you be vengeful and how can you, so I never got this side of, I never felt this side, and I don't think it's there. Disclaimer, this is my opinion, and everybody has a unique experience with God and a unique relationship with him. So yeah, but I'd never feared. I never thought he was vengeful or is vengeful or angry. This is a fear-based kind of doctrine,
right.
Sort of religion driven.
I agree with that, because I've always said that, okay, so I've heard the same stories. I went to like church school all my life. So I pretty much heard all these stories until like 12th grade, because that's when I stopped going to church school. And it is true, because you'll hear about how God is vengeful and how he's jealous and all of these things. But it's like, once you think about the things that he did and how he's helped people and how loving and kind he is, it's just like, okay. And I agree with you 100% when you're just like, when you say that it's all religions driven, fear based, because I think that's what it is. It's like, if you can scare people to do certain things, like, if you don't do this, God's going to get you, then, you have them for life. But that's just how that works out. So I agree with you 100% about the fear and everything else.
He never said, fear me. Never, right. Ever. Never has it been written, thou shalt fear me, or something like that. So I don't think he's such a huge being, or huge divinity of love and compassion. Why would he need you to fear him?
Right.
So that's my take on this.
I love that. So as you got older into your adolescence, tell me a little bit more. How did God fit into your life during that time?
My goodness. He he helped. He really helped. I went through a hard time being sort of rejected by my peers because
Right.
I'm blind and because I'm different and because I also think differently. I don't conform to a lot of also not a lot of rules, but not a lot of don't get me wrong, I don't break laws, yeah,
No, I
but
understand what you're saying.
yeah, rules and regulations. If I thought they were logical, I followed them. But also, you know, I didn't think like all the other kids thought. I didn't go with fashion or with popular stuff. I still don't,
Right.
I'm very much my own woman, and I love esoteric things, and I'm very spiritual, and I'm into a lot of things that other people are not into. So, and it's it was like he was always there and always helped. And whenever I was alone and I was lonely or cried or something, it felt like he was there and hugging me, or
Yeah.
being there and standing in front of me and just, it's okay.
Right.
It's like this huge force of benevolence and love that sort of wrapped itself around me and still does
Mm-hmm.
to this day. And really, it was like that all the time. He was there, and he helped, intervened in different situations when I was in danger, or when
Yeah.
I was in real physical, on a way of in way of physical harm or something.
Mm-hmm.
He helped, he intervened and saved me, or helped me save myself, so to
Yeah.
speak.
Well, tell me more about this. 'Cause I noticed earlier you said that God
Yeah,
intervened and
yeah.
stuff. So
This
tell me
was,
about that.
it was so strong. It was like obvious that he was there. So when I was 5, I went with my mom to a department store, and she had a very heavy bag of groceries and stuff. And we went on an escalator, and somebody pushed me from the in front.
Oh
Somebody
my
pushed me, and
goodness.
I tripped my mother as well.
Mm-hmm.
And on an escalator, they're moving, stairs are moving and
Yes.
all that. And I sort of rolled down the stairs, and my mother rolled down the stairs. And miraculously, or not miraculously, but divinely,
Yes.
he stopped us from getting hurt. I got only very few scratches. My mom got a very, very mild concussion that didn't require hospitalization, and we survived it. We could
Wow.
have not survived it.
Yeah.
And he was there, and he was there. And another story, very, very strong intervention, was I was riding a horse when I was 16, a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
And the horse in front of her started getting her angry. You know how the males sort of
Yeah.
sometimes get into irritating the females, and da 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 da. So the mare that I was riding started cantering very wildly, or loping, if you whatever the term you use. And I held as if my life depended on it, which it probably did.
Mm-hmm.
And she sort of raised her neck, and I felt that my arms were getting around the neck, and I was halfway down the flank of the horse, but I was on the horse. I managed to stay on the horse.
Wow.
Something. He gave me the strength. God gave me the strength to hold on, and I didn't fall, and nothing happened.
Wow.
Nothing happened. I just got back on the horse. She sort of quieted down because the guides helped me, and that's it. And I was back on the horse and continuing to ride the lesson, so I won't have a trauma from there. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, he just was there as if his hand was on me and kept me on the horse. And there was another story. I was 30 something, and
Yeah.
I went sailing. I love sailing. I'm a boater, a sailor. And I got on a gangway to get on a little boat.
Yes.
And the boat separated from this little gangway or gangplank, and I was hanging on the water, over the water, at some point, but I held on. I held on to the wood, the planks of this gangway. And I had this strength. I didn't feel an effort until I got on the boat. And I'm sure that he was there just giving me strength to hold on, not fall, and not hurt myself. And I got on the boat and everything was fine. And there was another boat story that I sort of fell into the boat and hit my head, but nothing happened. No concussion, no nothing.
Yeah.
So he was there. He was cushioning it. He cushioned my fall so that I didn't hurt anything. It was just a little bump on my head, and that's it. It's been like that all my life. It's been like that.
I get that.
These were the main stories, but yeah, there were others, very lesser interventions. But he's always there. He's always there.
That is amazing.
And he helped my mother at some point. He saved her from a car accident that could have been fatal. I believe that he intervened as well.
Oh, well, tell me that story.
Oh, she was coming back from a dance in an evening, and she stopped at a stop sign, and somebody didn't stop at his stop sign and rammed into her, like really rammed into her. And the car was total loss, and the door, you should have seen the driver's door. It was smashed. And she came out with a head wound that bled. It was a gash, like kind of a deep one, but not fatal again. She had a concussion, but very mild, and she had a very, very mild kidney injury.
Wow.
And to have seen the car, you would never believe somebody survived it. And my sister, who was there with her in the front seat, also not a scratch on her.
Wow.
So he intervened. I'm sure he did.
No, I know he did, and it's amazing because it's like I'm listening to your stories, and you know, I understand where you're coming from because I've had stories like that too. I remember when I was, I think like 5 or 6, whatever. I used to be a daredevil as a child, so if someone was like, "Keana, don't do this," I would do it just because. And so I got this brilliant idea to ride down. My grandmother lived in the country, and outside she had concrete steps. So I had this brilliant idea to take my bike up there and to just drive down these stairs. And I did it. And I remember, I know. The bike almost flipped over. I felt the bike like flipping over. And I was like, oh, this is it. You know, I'm really going to get hurt. But then I felt the bike just come back up. And I came down those stairs like on one wheel. And at that point, that's kind of when I was like, wow. I knew it wasn't me. I knew I felt something push me back up. So I knew it was God. But then I didn't know how to explain it because I was a kid. But I was like, wow, what just happened
have a name
here?
For it, yeah.
Yeah. And
wow. Beautiful.
I know it's been lots of things like that. And even recently, like there was a situation that happened. And for some reason that week, you know, it was last week, I felt like something was going to happen. You know how you get this feeling like something good is not going to happen. I think something bad is going to happen. But I kept thinking about the verse in the Bible. Yeah, and I just kept thinking about the verse in the Bible that says all things work together for good. And so I was like, I wonder what it is. I wonder what it is. And then like later on last week, I found out some news or whatever about a job that I wanted or whatever. But then that door closed and then another door opened and I ended up getting like a better job in something that I wanted. So I was just amazed this week. I was just like, wow, it's amazing how even something that small, God's like, don't worry about it. I got it. You know, it's going to work out. It's going to work out. And so I totally understand where you're coming from because I've also had experiences like that with God all my life where he talked to me and he kind of led me and protected me. And, you know, it was in ways that I knew it had to be nobody else but God because who else could make this happen?
I got your back, he says.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, he says, everything is fine. I got your back. And he would hold my hand or he would pet me on the cheek and he would say, everything is fine.
Yeah.
Everything is fine. And everything is fine. He's like, don't worry. And I know he talks to me. I hear him. I hear his voice. I know. He shows me stuff in many, many, many ways. And he protects my friends and my family. And he's there all the time. Like when something happens, I cut my hand really bad, my finger kind of badly. And I was worried, and there was some kind of, we thought it was an infection. In the end, it was just edema that made it swell and not go down for quite a while, for months.
Right.
And I was worried, and I was really, really worried. I was like, what on earth is this? And he says, don't worry. I'm wrapping you up in love, and you'll be all right, and everything will be all right. Every time he says everything will be all right, everything is all right.
Yeah.
Everything is always all right, because he's right, and he's with us, and he supports us in many ways.
Yes, he does. Now I have a question. I know a guest asked me this a while ago, and they asked me, how did I hear God talking to me? And I told them my way was sometimes music, sometimes I would get a thought or something like that. So could you elaborate on how God talks to you?
I'm a channeler, and I hear him.
Right.
I really hear his voice, and I hear him talking to me. And he speaks mostly in Hebrew, but sometimes I would answer in English and he would answer me in English as well. So, yeah, that's very funny what he does. Did you know God has a sense of humor?
Absolutely.
Yeah, he makes me laugh. He's a real stand-up comedian sometimes. Yes, he is. And it's funny.
Yeah, and the thing that I like about this is that I don't think there's like a set way to worship God or to have a relationship with him, because everybody is different. Everyone has different ways of doing things. And it's amazing how God connects to each one of us in our own way, like for me, it's always
everything is a unique experience.
Yeah.
It's a unique experience, a personal, unique experience, relationship with God.
Absolutely. Because I know for me, it's music a lot of the time because I love music, and that's the thing that has always gotten to me since I was a kid. Music has been the thing that has always come to me. Yes. And then sometimes reading, sometimes other ways. But it's amazing how I listen to you and then I listen to other people, and God, like one lady, she could see God and feel his presence when she did art, and someone else did it with acting and dancing and, drawing. And it's just amazing how God connects with us all in our own unique way. And so that's why sometimes when it comes to religion,
and some people find him in nature.
Yeah, absolutely. So true. And that's why for me, sometimes when it comes to religion, I'm just like, well, I kind of separate religion from God, because I just think that religion is something that tells everybody to do the same thing. It doesn't take into account that people have different experiences, different childhoods, different things that make us react and feel the way that we do. And so it's telling all these different people one thing.
Religion is a human-made thing.
Yeah.
God didn't make religion. God is here. He doesn't need religion.
Right.
He doesn't need the connection to be based on religion. It's a human-made thing, and it belittles God. It makes him little.
Wow. Yeah.
It makes him like this old guy in the sky type of thing, and I don't like it.
I agree.
He's not an old guy in the sky with a beard. He's so much more than that. He's so bigger than that.
He is. So let me ask you, if there's someone out there who's looking for God, what advice would you give them?
As I said, connect in the best way that you can. I mean, if you find whatever feels more divine to you, if nature feels the most divine, music, like you connect, books, art, as this woman told you, this lady, an animal, or birds in the sky. Just look at birds in the sky. Wow, it's amazing how they fly and how they migrate. Look at ants, how they are so ordered. This must be divine or intervention or intelligence that's created it. It can't be just random. The universe is not random. Earth is not random. It's genius. He's a genius because everything is, he's smiling. I can tell you that he's smiling now because everything is interconnected and interdependent, and everything is planned. There's nothing random, nothing. Even though things look random, you'll see his divine hand everywhere. Absolutely. And these are the few ways I can think about now to connect, but there's so many others. The more I think the ways are as many as people are on earth, because as I said, it's unique. And every experience is unique. Every relationship is unique. You can find him in numbers. Yeah. You can find him in the sky, in clouds. I'm talking about the people who found him this way. Yeah. So you can just fill your heart with love, and you'll fill his love back. They say it's a commandment in our religion, in Jewish religion. I'm not Jewish. I don't define myself as anything. I'm a citizen of the universe or a woman of the universe, but still, in Jewish religion, there's this, it's called Shema Israel. It's the prayer we say when you go to sleep, and it's a prayer you say when you're in trouble and all that. So Shema Israel, which means listen, Israel, it says, love thy God with all your heart and soul and being. And I love my God with all my heart and soul and being. And not because it's a commandment, because I feel it natural. It's a natural state for me. And when you do that, when you love, just fill your heart with love, you'll feel the divine inside you and around you.
Well, you know what? Thank you so much for being a guest in the podcast. And I look forward to hearing more from you. Wow, what an amazing interview. I especially love how Imbar talks about how she didn't grow up in a religious environment. They just did things every now and then. But she mentioned how she was sent to a Christian school and how while she was at that school, God was able to speak to her through the music, and how she's always been able to know that God was there. His presence has always been felt. And I absolutely love it because so many times, especially in this day and age, we get caught up thinking that God can only find you or have a relationship with you if you are in church, or if you believe in religion, or if you do this, or if you do that. And I want to tell you that when we think like that, we are putting God in a box. We're saying God cannot talk to anybody else unless you're doing these things. That is not true. God made the world. He loves us. He knows what we're thinking. It says in the Bible, He knew us before we were even born. That is how intimately God knows us. The same relationship He has with me, He can have with someone who doesn't go to church. The same relationship that He has with them, He can have with someone else. Even people who consider themselves to be atheists, God still can guide them and talk to them and be with them. So there's nowhere in the world, and there's nothing that we have to do per se to have God in our lives. All we have to do is love Him, trust Him, and accept that there is someone greater out there who loves us, and know that God is always speaking to us. I know when I was younger, I used to always hear how God wouldn't come to your rescue if you were in certain places or doing certain things. And I would always think about all those people in the Bible who God did help and God did save. You know, it's amazing. It says David was a man after God's own heart. But let's think about all the things that David did. And so it's important to realize that our relationship with God is about our heart. It's about knowing Him on a one-to-one basis, having a relationship with Him. It's not about going to church. And I think that in this day and age, we kind of have done the same thing with religion. We're kind of like, religion says you have to do this, have to do that. And God is saying, no, you don't. Jesus is saying, I died for everyone. I'm with you. I can talk to you. You can have a relationship with me, whether you go to church or not. Whether you do this or whether you do that, it's not about what you do. It's about the relationship with God. Because if you have a relationship with God, then you're going to do things that are kind. You're going to be helpful. You're going to be loving. Why? Because having a relationship with someone is like a friendship. Having a friendship with someone shows that you are close to them. I remember when I was younger, my mom and my grandmother used to always say things like, birds of a feather flock together. So they were telling me the friends that I made and the friends that I hung around and the people that I considered to be my friends were the people I would act like. So if you consider Jesus to be your friend, and if you spend time with Him and get to know Him and have a relationship with Jesus and have a relationship with God, then you are going to start acting like them, because you act like the people that you hang around and the people that you're friends with. So that is why I feel that when it comes to having that relationship, it's more important than religion, more important than going to church. But having that relationship with God will help you become more like Him. So remember, if you are feeling discouraged because you missed church, or you didn't read your Bible, or you didn't do this or that, just remember God wants to have a relationship with you. And instead of focusing on all the things that you're not doing, focus on having a relationship with God and getting to know Him for who He is. And you'll be surprised to see how quickly you will be able to do things that are kind and nice, because you are spending that quality time with God. Now, our singer, songwriter, and artist of the week is Sandra Lamb. And we are going to be listening to her single, Good to Me. So here is the single, Good to Me, by our artist of the week, Sandra Lamb.
I stand your greatness. I stand in awe of your grace. With my voice I sing your praises. You have been so good to me. You've been so good, so good to me. You've been so good, so good to me. With my voice I give you glory. You have been so good to me. With my voice I give you glory. You are faithful and gracious. With my voice I give you glory. You have been so good to me. To God be all the glory. To God be all the praise. From my heart I give you glory. You have been so good to me. You've been so good, so good to me. You've been so good, so good to me. With my voice I give you glory. You have been so good to me. With my voice I give you glory. You are faithful and gracious. With my voice I give you glory. You have been so good. How great thou art. I stand in awe of you. How great thou art. I stand in awe of you. How great thou art. I stand in awe of you. You've been so good, so good, so good to me, so good to me. You've been so good, so good to me. With my voice I give you glory. You have been so good to me.
Before I end the podcast, I would like to thank you so much for being here with me today and for listening to another inspirational story about how people find God. If you love the podcast as much as I love spending time with you, I encourage you to share this week's episode with a friend or family member and to make sure that you like and follow the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. I will also love it if you would leave a review for the podcast so that you can let me know how much you are enjoying the show. If you would like to get in contact with Sandra, Imbar, or myself, all of our contact information can be found in the show notes, and all you have to do is click on the links below, and you will definitely be able to get in contact with us. If you would like to be a guest on the podcast, click on the email address in the show notes and let me know that you would like to be a guest, and I will make sure that I get in contact with you and schedule a day and time for you to record an interview. If you would like to submit music to the podcast, Click on the email address in the show notes and send me an email letting me know that you would like to submit a song for the show. In this email, send me a picture, a short bio, and an MP3 of the song that you would like to submit. Well, I think that's all for now. So until next week, have an amazing day and a wonderful weekend. Bye-bye.